Joining me now for more on the situation in Syria is military analyst and retired U.S. Army Major Mike Lyons. Mike, thanks so much for joining us this evening. Once again, we're hearing the words chemical weapons used within Syria. And if it's true, could it be a turning point? Because we've also heard the term red line, but so far nothing's been done.
Well, let's take the term. The red line doesn't mean military action is imminent. I think that at that point it's going to accelerate things possibly. But I think in order for us to get involved militarily, there's going to have to be exclusive proof with regard to the use of chemical weapons in a military fashion. You're going to have to see, unfortunately, thousands of casualties. It clearly something that you know that came from a chemical weapon, and not just this kind of one-off circumstantial kind of evidence that we're getting right now with regard to the use of chemicals there.
You said proof. Isn't it difficult to confirm the use of chemical weapons? I know there is testing being done at this time. And how do you pinpoint the origin of use, whether it's the government or the opposition in this case, or if both sides have used them? What then?
And that's a challenge. And I think, first of all, neither side has any interest, or it's not in their best interest to use chemical weapons. And also, you're not going to use them tactically. You're not going to put a chemical weapon on a grenade launcher, let's say, or even a small rocket. A chemical weapon has to be delivered by air. It has to be delivered by an artillery round that has to explode. And it's often delivered in mass with other chemical weapons around it. I think what's happened is we've confused some of the munitions that the Syrian army has in their capability, their white phosphorus rounds, for example, other kinds of smoke and alike. And that has now been unfortunately confused to be a chemical weapon. So again, until we see a mass casualty, multiple people killed, unfortunately, that would be that crossing of that red line the president's talking about.
So you actually think that it's not a chemical weapon, what people are speculating on, that was actually used?
I think that, again, we've got to understand the difference between exposure to chemical weapons and the use of it. I think there's no question that chemical weapons are awash in that country. They're everywhere. And moving them around could cause them to leak, explode, and give people the same kind of exposure they had if it was used as a weapon. So, again, if it's being used purposefully, it would have a much greater impact besides one or two individuals within a small town. It's not feasible to use chemical weapons against only a few people. It's used against an entire area. It's designed to have a mass casualty type arrangement, really, with an area of a great wide space, not just a small piece of land or a small little village.
Mike, I want to get your opinion on this peace conference that's being tossed around by both the U.S. and Russia. Do you think it will happen? And if it does, could they be successful in bringing both sides to the table?
I think we have to give it a chance. I think diplomacy always it makes sense in this situation. Anything we can do to stop what's happening there, the humanitarian responsibility to protect right now, I think it's at the forefront of this administration. And so you have the Russians on the side of the current government in Syria, and if they can talk them, off the ledge, get them to back down, get them to stop some of the violence, bring these two sides together, the question is whether the current government was going to step down or not, whether there's some kind of escape plan for him. But I think the fact that the Russians now are more involved, want to get and make sure that the Syrian government itself has an escape hatch, I think is fundamentally a good thing. The question is if it's going to be just used to just delay, have the government cause more damage, and actually escalate some of the fighting.
All right, Mike Lyons, we appreciate your insight and your perspective.